And we're on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to our podcast, Get Real with Gen Z, starring Lauren Kennedy, Chriselle Arias, Brianna Reese, and Deandra Hinkle. Today's topic is what's going on with the Asian communities and how they're being affected. Stay tuned for our special guest after.
So, as we stated, this episode we're going to be talking about Asian hate. So, this is a recent development. Recently in the news, there have been more discussions about Asian hate and what the Asian community is facing right now, and it's very harmful. And I feel like it's something that we didn't learn about in school. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely didn't learn anything about
Definitely not.
Yeah. So, one thing I want to bring up is something I learned recently, which is something called the model minority. So, often Asians are seen as the model minority, in quotations, because they are seen as almost like the best of all minorities, and they are told that they are incredibly smart, and most of their stereotypes are you should be really good at math, you should be really good at this, and it can be very harmful because then when you aren't, you're seen as less than, and then they try and say in the news how, oh well, this community is doing very well, so why aren't other minorities doing very well? And then if you're not doing very well in the Asian community, then you're seen as less than, and people speak about you.
For sure. I feel like the model minority trope is something that we need to get rid of within minority communities, because in reality, like we're going to talk about earlier with Miss Marty, no minority, no person is better than the other person, and so we all have stereotypes. All races, all sexualities, everybody has stereotypes. So for them to make Asian stereotypes a little bit more positive, when you hear what people say about my community, like we're ghetto, we're loud, we're obnoxious and stuff like that, and for them to be good at math and to follow and lead by example, I think it's a little bit of a slap in the face. But Asian hate is something that's been passed down. I mean, well, obviously, all hate is something that's been passed down, but Asian hate is something that's been long running in America. I feel like a lot of times people don't consider Asian Americans as just Americans,
Yeah.
And that also happens a lot for Hispanics too. They always say that you guys don't belong here, and other things like that. And especially since COVID's come along, I feel like a lot more hate has been on the rise, especially for Asian Americans. I've heard terms like Kung Flu and a lot of other terms, especially headed by congressmen and presidents saying stuff like that. So it's wild on how much racism plays a big part in our society as a whole. And I know I'm talking you guys' head off right now. I know. But I recently was reading up on something, and I heard, I'm going to call it this, but it's called the invisible racial hierarchy. Right, and so it's basically, I'm trying to use an example. Okay, so let's say if someone was applying for a job, any job, doesn't really matter. First person to get that job will be a white male. Next in line will be a white woman. Next it could be either a Hispanic male or Hispanic woman, or an Asian male or an Asian woman.
Yes.
Then at the bottom of the barrel, you'll see a black man. And then at the very, very bottom, you'll see a black woman. And actually, sorry, my facts are a little wrong. Hispanic women are right under black women. So it goes Hispanic women, black men, so on and so forth, like that. Yeah. And I feel like that's something that we all know that mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like an invisible rule that no one really talks about.
Yeah.
And no one really addresses.
And that's where colorism takes into account.
Absolutely,
A lot. The lighter your
absolutely.
skin, the more. Another thing about Asian hate is that I'm incredibly surprised that we did not learn about was the killing of Vincent Chin.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Chinese American draftsman, and he was beaten to death by 2 white men. And we didn't learn about this at all. And this was just like a recent thing that I learned about while doing some research on Asian hate. And the Asian and Black community were very close, and they were very like supporting of each other. And then some things happened where some people were killed, and they just separated, and they weren't as supportive anymore. But from beforehand, where the Asian and Black community were very close, that should be all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We should all be supportive of every race, every person.
But I mean, yeah, for sure. Now, there's more of a divide between the Asian and the Black communities.
Yes.
Like when all this Asian hate was coming along, I've had some of my friends like, oh, why should we support them? I didn't see any Asians going out with no sign saying Black Lives Matter. They don't care about us, so why should we care about them?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a type of mindset that we need to get rid of. Regardless, we should stop creating a divide between us. If first of all, only a couple of Asians do not represent the whole community.
Yes.
So if a couple of Black people or African American people wanted to extend the hand and speak up about the situation, that's what we need to do to continue to make things better and move along.
Yeah. And obviously everyone has their own reasons for doing things, but we should all be supportive of each other.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this?
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm actually at the point where I'm thinking like it's okay to be offended. Like, don't step on eggshells around other people because you're afraid to offend them. I feel like the more we talk about things, the more it can continue to be normalized. So if we continue to spread awareness about the invisible hierarchy or racism and discrimination, the less it will happen. The more aware people will be about the situation. Because like we said earlier, there's not many people who are actually aware that they have privilege. So yeah, I completely agree though. And then recently, I believe March 18th, correct me if I'm wrong on this, anybody, a white man went up and shot up 3 spas, I believe, killing 6 Asian women. And it's just a sad situation. And that's what really, that whole situation is what really made me realize how big Asian discrimination and Asian hate is in our country.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
It's all stemming from something that our past president was saying about the flu, how it was all stemmed from China, and basically trying to shift the blame to one race, which is not the case.
Right. What else do you guys think about the Asian hate situation? Any other stories you may have heard? Because that spa situation and those 6 women dying were not the only thing that's happened in the hundreds of years this country's been.
I heard about when a man, he's 23 and he's from Yemen, and he was walking down the street and a stranger suddenly ran up behind him and stabbed him in the knife in his back.
Wow.
He's 23. And the dude was just attempted with murder, but not as a hate crime.
Yeah, and a lot of these situations, like as shocking as it is, people are constantly getting away with these hate crimes with a slap on the wrist. Whether it's a citizen or anyone in our criminal justice system, that being the police, they're still getting away with all this with things like basically vacations with pay. They're getting away with it with $3,000 fines and bail. Like, there's no actual consequences for these actions, for murder. It's just completely ridiculous to me.
Did you guys hear about that lady? I think she who was attacked for looking Asian.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. She's a Mexican American. It happened in California. I think she goes by the name Becky. But her attacker was 23 years old. Another woman. But yeah, basically she was attacked for looking Asian. But just for looking Asian. So that's like,
Wow.
does that mean now if you look Asian, you're just gonna get attacked? That's like, if I look Asian, am I gonna get attacked even though I'm not Asian?
Yeah, any minority should not feel fear because they are who they are. Whether you're Muslim, Black, Asian, Hispanic, you should not live in fear that someone's gonna say that someone stole your phone when you're 10 years old, or call the cops on you when you're having a barbecue, or attack you if you're Asian.
Yeah.
I don't understand why others attack others. I mean, but like, I want to go through like their head and like their process of why attack them.
Yeah. Like what do they think is gonna happen? What
Yeah.
do they think
Or
that'll
like
fix?
what they think if they're just like gonna get away with it, or like, I want to understand that like mental process that they have,
Right.
and their reason for attacking them.
Yeah.
Right. In all honesty, I really think like it's a trope. Like, for example, people thinking like anyone who isn't white isn't safe. Basically,
Yeah.
since your skin is darker than mine, for example, you're a threat to me. I feel like it's that kind of mentality that continues to be passed along, and once you're 23, it's embedded in you, right? Regardless
Yeah.
of how much you try to change it or not.
Yeah, like I don't go out every day and think, oh, I'm Hispanic. I don't like this person, or I don't think less than of the people around me. So I wonder sometimes, like Chriselle said, what goes through their minds. Like, do they
Yeah.
go out in a day thinking, I'm gonna attack someone?
Yeah.
Being
Just
a
out of
minority.
nowhere, or do they already have it like planned? Oh, the first person I see, I'm just gonna attack them, even though
Yeah.
they're not doing nothing to me.
Yeah.
In all honesty, y'all, they probably do. Like, like we all, well, no, I'm not going to say we all. I don't want to speak for everyone.
Yeah.
But, like, there's been times, and I hate to admit it, where I might see, like, a black man walking near me, and I might lock my door. In all sadness. And that's something that I've been taught, sadly. And that's something, like, a habit that I've formed.
Yeah.
Working on it now, I have to trust anyone who's around me. But you see what I'm saying? And so it's like, those are like little discriminations.
Yeah.
And so like little minute things.
Yeah.
Or-
We're conditioned to believe these things.
Exactly. And so for them, it was probably a lot more amplified to the point where they're like, any person I see who looks like this, who whatever they're wearing, or anything like that, I'm gonna cast hate on them. It's conditioned on them.
Another thing, because as we mentioned, we're still learning a lot about this. But another term that I heard was conditional citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys heard of this?
Nope.
It's like many Asians are lighter. Their skin tones are lighter. So they are like conditional citizens. So like, yes.
What does conditional citizen mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Oh, that's what
Yeah.
it means?
No,
Oh.
like
Is that where you're getting to?
that's what I'm getting
Oh,
to.
okay.
So warm up.
So they have certain restrictions. So like, if you are helping our economy, you are a citizen. If you are dragging us down, you are not. And when I did research on this, I did it a little while ago before our podcast recording, but it's highly based on if you are benefiting society, and it's specifically towards Asians. So if they are working and they're doing well, you are a citizen. And if you, like, as we said, there's a lot of positive stereotypes that can be harmful to society. So that's kind of what conditional citizenship is. It's a stereotype of, as long as you're doing well and you're playing up to the positive stereotypes that we believe, then you are a citizen. And if not, you're not. And it's all based upon if they are needed.
So they use you when you're available.
Yes.
Basically.
From my understanding, I definitely have to delve into it more. When doing my research, I found a book that seems like something I definitely want to read, and everyone should read. Is Conditional Citizens by Layla Lalami. That's definitely something that I want to read.
Mm-hmm.
Because it dives into that. And it dives into the meaning of conditional citizenship, because even, like, just now, I did a quick Google search to, find the book. There's not a straight answer. So you have to read to, try and find it, which is why it's a little difficult for me to say the definition, because there's not just a straight answer. It's kind of like what we mentioned in episode 2, the difference between Hispanic and Latino. There's not a straight answer.
I guess it depends on everybody's, because everybody has a different opinion. I think it's how the person who reads it takes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Takes what they take from it.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing about it, it's sounding like a conditional citizen is, I don't know, I really don't want to explain it wrong, so correct me if I mess up or anyway, but it sounds like, first of all, it doesn't sound like people are people. It sounds like people are money, obviously,
Yes.
and they are used when needed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not worth value to them, then you're cast away to the side.
Yes. From my understanding, that's what I got to.
Yeah. How does that specifically work for Asians, or does it work for all people? Are all people conditional citizens?
I think it could work for all people, but I think the reason it's much more to Asians is because of those positive stereotypes that are linked with them,
Yeah.
and that are causing them to be seen as, you have to be like the best minority, the model minority. You are the best. So prove to us that you are. And obviously they don't want to. They want to be their best selves. They don't want to be compared to other minorities, and they don't want to bring other minorities down, because we should all be working together instead of having that conditional citizenship on if you're doing well, or being that model minority, because then when you're not doing well, you're comparing it to other minorities that are doing well or that aren't. And it's just like a back and forth of, if this person's doing it, why can't you? So it's trying to minimize the issue.
Yeah. And then I've seen a lot of times where it's like, for example, let's say if an Asian did not do well on a math test or something, they'll instantly start comparing it to another minority in the classroom. Like, oh, don't go ask the black kid, or don't go ask the Hispanic kid. They definitely don't know what they're doing. Go to the Asian kid first. They most definitely know. Their parent knows that they have to get straight A's, so it's like things like that, and it's always embedded into you at a young age. So just looking back to some things I've noticed, like when you actually take a deep dive and learn some information about it, and you're looking back on the stuff you're taught, you're like, dang, they messed me up, you know what I'm saying? Like the way that parents or the media, the TV, the news, all that is teaching kids and embedding stereotypes and prejudice into our minds is wild to me.
Yeah, it's insane that someone can see us greater than or less than. Yeah. Well, obviously we all know that there's a lot of Asian hate going on right now, and that is something that should not be continuing to go on. As we've seen before, there was a Black Lives Matter protests and all of that, and now there's Asian hate protests and all of that. So that should continue. That should not be ignored, because they need the assistance, and they need the spotlight. They need to be acknowledged, because they are not less than. They are not a model minority. They are a minority, but they shouldn't be seen as greater and if they aren't doing as well, less than. So that
Absolutely.
just shouldn't be a term.
Exactly. And there shouldn't be a minority that we fall back on
Mhm.
and be like, oh, typical of them, typical for them to fail, typical for them not to succeed. Like Brianna just said, there's no greater, there's no less than. We're all the same, regardless. And when things open a little bit more, like open back up a little bit, we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to continue to spread awareness because it's not going to go away
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be a hashtag. It should be in the news. There should be laws. There should
Exactly.
even though there are laws, they should be
Enforced.
enforced way more.
Exactly. And we should not let the people who are supposed to be enforcing these laws go do what they want.
Yes.
But like there's no reason why I'm just learning about Asian hate.
When it's been going on for years.
Absolutely.
Years.
Absolutely.
Just as long as everything else.
Mhm.
One positive thing that I want to bring up is the Grammys.
Woohoo.
I didn't watch the Grammys, so I'm just now learning who won. But my brother was very invested in the Grammys. But there was who won Best Lead Actor, and there was I have it written down. In
The
my notes.
Grammys or the Oscars?
Is it
Oh, it
Aquafina?
might be the Oscars. I may just be getting it wrong.
The Oscars are for movies and
Yes,
films.
Oscars. Oscars.
Is it
I
Aquafina?
didn't
Like,
watch.
like I said, I don't keep in touch with any of this.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm learning about.
Mhm.
But what I did want to mention were for best lead actor, there was a Pakistani American actor nominated, which was a
Ooh.
first. This is a
Wow.
first. And there was an Asian American who was nominated for the first time.
Wow.
Muslims who were nominated for the first time. Sadly they didn't win, from what I see.
Mhm.
But that's wonderful that people are being nominated.
Yeah.
Who won?
From what it looks like, Anthony Hopkins.
Who's that?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
I know who that is. I think he's a African American. Oh no, that's not him. Okay, never mind. Wrong name. Hawkins, you say?
Yes, Hopkins.
Australian television actor.
Anthony Hopkins.
What was he in?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, hold on.
Oh, some white guy.
I'm getting to different people, but I am
He's 83.
Sir Philip
Whoa.
Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Philip.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh.
I did not watch the Oscars, but I do know that when the nominations were being released,
Mhm.
my brother was incredibly excited, and he did not care about who else was there. He was rooting for Asian Americans and Pakistani Americans
Yeah.
and Muslims.
That's
oh, Sir
great.
Philip Anthony Hawkins, sorry,
Mhm.
is from the United Kingdom.
He's British.
Yes.
Y'all,
think-
all the Britons are coming over here and like ruling American TV. I love it. Idris Elba. Sorry, I just had to plug him, my
But yeah,
man.
no, I just wanted to bring that up because
Yeah.
that's a step in the right direction.
It is. It's a good stride.
There's more,
An amazing stride.
diversity in the nominations.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. And I'm sorry. Since we're on the topic of the Grammys, there's a really, really good short film that
Grammys
everybody.
or Oscars?
Dang it, Oscars.
Yeah,
Same.
I know.
I don't know.
I messed up too.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Exactly. Okay. Oscars, right? There's a really, really, really good short film you guys should watch on Netflix. It's called Two Distant Strangers.
Okay.
It's so good. With Joey Bad A. I don't know if I can say it on here. Joey Bad A. Dollar sign, dollar sign. Dollar sign,
Oh,
dollar sign.
okay.
Yeah, him. They did such an amazing job. I'm just gonna recap it really quick. I saw it the other day. Literally cried. It's basically about a guy who wants to get home to his dog, and he's stuck in a time loop. And like a cop comes and strangles him to death the first time, and then it keeps happening and happening until he can finally break this cycle.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
What
But
was
it's-
it called again?
Two Distant Strangers,
Okay.
and it actually won the Oscar. So I was just excited to see that, and
Yeah.
like,
That's beautiful. The summary. The film examines the deaths
Yeah.
of Black Americans during encounters with police through
Yeah.
the eyes of a character trapped in a time loop.
and there
Yeah.
was even a scene where like one of the times where he was trying to get him to like leave him alone so he can go get home to his dog, he was like, "Oh, before you even try to do anything, can you take me home? Like, can we have a conversation?" And they like sat down in the car and just talked. Just had a conversation about why they're feuding. Like, what's the issue? It was such a beautiful film.
Yeah, that's
So.
definitely something that we should watch. And
It's only 32 minutes long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's only
short
30
film.
minutes.
Yeah, that definitely portrays what's going on in the world.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
beautifully.
Definitely, I would check that out.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I will. Yes.
Probably go watch it when I get home.
Yeah, girl, pull it up on Netflix. Do you guys have any other like stories that you've seen about Asian hate or discrimination recently? Because they're everywhere.
They are.
It's the start of a pandemic, so like it's all of the COVID because they think it's about a COVID.
Yeah,
They think they brought that COVID over here.
yeah, and that's not an idea that came out of thin air. That Asian people brought COVID over here is something that was said repeatedly
About
by American leaders, which is ridiculous, knowing that they have a following and knowing they have an influence on not only a young audience but as well as older people as well. And so they use that to promote hate, which is terrible.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I recently read like hate crimes have increased between 2019 and 2020 over like 149%. It was like 120 something more hate crimes than it was in 2018. So it's like history repeats itself. Things are backtracking.
Yeah. It's something we should continue to work towards.
Yeah.
And continue to do more research about so we can understand what is going on.
All right, guys. So now we're going to introduce our special guest. Her name is Miss Marty Bennett. She has worked in all around Charlotte with the Parent Child Plus program. So say hello, Marty. Let's see if they can hear you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your podcast. Hopefully, I can provide some valuable information, share some insights and some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining.
For
You're
sure.
more than welcome.
That's great, Miss Marty. Could you tell us a little about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I work with a company that's now called Olivium. We're previously known as the Charlotte Housing Authority. So I've worked there for probably about 13 years where we've worked in the client services department to help underserved communities face their barriers. So the barriers could be anything from transportation to education to childcare to loss of employment to can't find employment. Whatever the challenge is or was, then we were there to assist. Now I work with the Parent Child Plus program. That's where we work with children in underprivileged communities who are ages 16 months to 3 years old to make sure they have all the resources that they need to be able to begin school.
Great. Any of you guys have any questions for Miss Marty while she's here?
Hi, Miss Marty. My question is, how long have you been working with children?
Okay, so that program is actually a brand new program that just reached Charlotte. So you'll probably see that program on tons of billboards, on the side of buses. When the light rail's up and running, you'll start to see this program displayed more and more often. So it's a brand new program that started right at the beginning of our pandemic. So it started in March of 2020. And it's a program that's new and thriving. We're partnering with several different agencies, such as the American Red Cross. We're partnering with the City of Charlotte. We're partnering with CPCC, Atrium, Novant, tons of different partners throughout the City of Charlotte, just to kind of make sure that the people who are in need of the services are able to receive them.
Wonderful. So what are some examples of some difficulties that you see different families are facing?
Okay. A lot of times our families who our communities, the families who reside in our community are facing things such as lack of employment, are unable to earn enough income to be able to support their families. We also have people who lack education to be able to find good jobs, people who maybe have records who can't find good jobs. We work with people who are senior and disabled to make sure that income is enough to provide them with comfortable, safe, and efficient housing. We also make sure that the children who reside in the communities are also able to receive the resources they need, such as child care, such as medical service, whether that be dental or medical, and make sure they're able to get back and forth to school to provide them with additional transportation if maybe the buses don't reach. And we also work to provide them with different programmings. If there's a child with special needs, we'll provide them with the resources they need to get a diagnosis and also supply them with the resources they need to be able to assist their special needs. So it's a very rewarding position, very rewarding program.
So, Miss Marty, any stories about the families in your community?
Yes, we have some tons of rewarding stories. We work with the parents to make sure they reach a level of self-sufficiency, so that alone is rewarding. But I'll tell you one story that sits near and dear to my heart. We work with a little boy from age of 3 for probably about a good 6 consecutive months. We're working with him, trying to get him to become verbal because he was not saying words at all. No mother, no father, no mom, no dad, no words. He would only point and make noises. So after we continued to work with this child and began to evaluate him, we noticed that the child had a hearing deficiency. The child was completely deaf. So we were able to work with the child to get him the resources he needed to get first medical insurance, and then he was able to get a primary care physician, and they were able to provide him with the diagnosis that he was deaf. He was able to get tubes in his ears, and now he's just had celebrated his 3rd birthday, and he's completely verbal. He's talking as good as any 10-year-old. So that's just like one of the simple success stories of the work that we do and the pride that we have. Another story that I can tell you, this is another one that I like to I won't say brag, but this is another one that sits dear with me, is we work with the lady who had 5 children. She was 25 years old, and we work with her to find employment. So her challenge, of course, was childcare. So we work with Childcare Resource, which is another partnership I've been living in, to make sure that she was able to get all of her children in childcare. And now this lady has not only found a job, but she was able to complete school and become a registered nurse. So it just goes to show that all dreams are possible, that you could be anything you want to be, no matter what your stepping stones or barriers that may be that you face in life, dreams are still possible. And dreams do come true.
Right. That's so beautiful that you have all these stories and are able to bring light to to so many different communities. We already know that, some people are already dealt like bad cards in life. It always doesn't start off super fair, and it's glad that you guys can contribute to at least make something or make some type of middle ground.
Yes.
Do you have it? Like, we know discrimination exists a lot in those communities and a lot of like stereotypes and stuff like that. Do you have any solutions when it comes to any of those?
Yes, unfortunately, we do live in a world to where racism does still exist. As much as we would like to pretend that it doesn't, it is very much there. My solution and what I always encourage people to be is to be a light in a dark place. If you see something wrong, speak up about it. Your speaking up about it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It doesn't have to be a fight. You can just definitely say, hey, to whoever the person in charge is, I know that, and I witnessed that person not being treated fairly. And I'm almost certain that it's because of their race. And I want to be a part of that change and implement something that they could do better of whatever you witness, whether they were discriminated and turned down from a job or discriminated and turned down from receiving service at a store. If you see something wrong, speak up about it. Do not stand for or do not sit around in silence when you see things happening that should not happen. And I think that starts with us at a very young age. And it's something that we have to continue to instill into our morals as we continue to grow and to continue to live in this world, because we don't have just basic races anymore. We don't have just white, black, Asians, and Hispanics. We are multiplying and we are procreating amongst each other. So our races are becoming crossbreeds. So I believe everyone deserves equal opportunities. Everyone deserves a fair chance, whether you're white, black, Asian, Latino, or anything in between, or a combination of. You deserve a fair chance at whatever your goals and your aspirations may be.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Do you often see that race does come into play when someone is seeking care or assistance?
Unfortunately, I would have to say yes. We see it way too often. We have, there's stereotypes that exist. And to be completely honest, a high percentage of our population that we serve are African American individuals. And with that being a high population, there are stereotypes that say Black people or African Americans don't like to work, that they tear up things, they don't take care of their kids. And with us providing a service of housing assistance, then we're responsible for making sure these people have safe and decent housing. So a lot of times landlords and people who are owners of homes don't want the people who we serve to participate in their programs or live in their houses because they fear that they won't get their rent or they feel that they will tear them up. So that's why we stand behind them to ensure that not only do African American people do this? This is a stereotype. This is amongst people in general. So not only will a Black or African American person may destroy your stuff or may knock holes in your walls or may not work enough to pay your rent, so could a white person, so could an Asian, so could a Hispanic. So it's not a stereotype that should fit or be only demeaned towards African Americans. It should exist amongst people. So we encourage our participants who actually rent out their homes to the people that we serve to not judge or not even put on their application process, what is your race? Definitely check and see if they make enough income. Definitely check and see, screen the person's background to see if, they will be suitable for the environment that they'll be moving into, but don't make your decision based upon race. And we see that way too often. Even in things as far as employment, there have been times we try to help people find jobs and it comes across that African American people talk a certain kind of way. I'm an African American woman, and sometimes I could be a little loose-lipped myself, but I know when to turn it on or when to turn it off. So we also encourage people, not only African Americans, but anyone who comes through our portfolio for assistance, to take classes to be able to have proficient speech. And I think that it's not a thing of race. I think it's more so a thing of environment. I'm from the Deep South. I'm come from Augusta, Georgia, born and raised, and I have a country dialect. And so sometimes you can identify that I'm a Southerner just definitely by my voice. So those are just things that we try not to have people judge people on or make decisions that will impact people on based upon their race.
Do you think racism has progressed or decreased in your lifespan?
I think, honestly, I would think that racism has progressed. And let me explain why I say that. Of course, I'm nearing 40, so I'm knocking on the doors of 40. So that makes my parents about 70 years old. So, of course, my parents did not live during a time of slavery, but they definitely lived during a time of segregation. So I think that when they had time to rear their children and raise their families, they provided us with a sheltered life. Sheltered meaning that we did not have or get to experience racism. However, as I've gotten older and have a family of my own, and my family doesn't look like a traditional family. We have light-skinned people, dark-skinned people. We have mixed people. I even have cousins who are of the Caucasian race. And because of that, when we gather and things of that sort, people are always identifying us based upon, what are you? What are you mixed with? Those type things. And so that alone has taught me that racism is a thing that definitely still exists. And I feel that if we don't take a forward stand to force people to stop discriminating based upon race, then it'll be something that will continue to exist even when your children, and when you do have children, when your children have children, it'll be something that continues to exist. So we have to show people that we're not a race, but a human race.
Amen.
And if we could be treated amongst that, then I think that the world will progress a little bit further. Right. If we look in other countries, of course, they're supportive of each other. Of course, like, we're just going to use a prime example of a Latino community. I'm not exactly sure how the Latino communities operate or if they have different regions that they're from, but I've witnessed Latino communities pull together and be very supportive of each other. And one time, this is just a personal experience that I witnessed. I went to Mexico and I just witnessed, it was very family friendly, very oriented towards whoever needed assistance were willing to help. Even if they noticed that you were a tourist, they were like, hey, let's wrap our loving arms around you. Let's, show you a good time. And I think that that's how our America should be. Our America should be a place where we just identify people as people. and we love each other as such, and we're able to provide services, offer an extended hand, extend the olive branch, and be there for each other as such.
Amen, amen. And I just want to agree with you here, Miss Marty. I feel like racism has definitely progressed, and it's a little bit more hidden in a way. It's in our school systems and our criminal justice system, literally everywhere around us, and it goes to the point where it just flies under people's radar because they're not the ones experiencing it. They're not the ones living through it like minorities are.
That is so true. And let me add on to that just a little bit, piggyback off of your statement. Another reason why I can honestly say that racism has progressed is because now it's being, I won't say flaunted, but it's being exposed. Where before we didn't have social media, we didn't have camera phones to record. So now when people are experiencing things and things are happening, such as police brutality, people are recording it. So the world is seeing it. So now it's not something that's happening behind closed doors. We're aware that it now exists and that it still exists, but now it's being exposed.
Yeah, many people now are fighting against it, trying to show what is wrong with the system and trying to fix it.
Hmm. And we need to continue to
You're right.
continue to put out stories, talk on Twitter, use those hashtags and everything just to get justice for each and every person that's experienced anything like that. And I'm sorry to interrupt anybody. To piggyback on what Miss Marty said earlier about how, like, in other communities, there's like a family gathering. It's like we are one sort of thing, right? But in well, for my community or what I've seen, being a black woman, there's such a divide, especially when it comes to like colorism and all that stuff. It's more like light skins and mixed people, or people who have like one of black parent or whatever, compared to dark skins or African people. It's more like we're against each other instead of united. And that goes way back into history, but check out our first episode for more on that.
So, going off of that topic, what are your fears for the future when it comes to racism?
Oh, my fears for the future are, they're definitely shaky. They're actually pretty scary because I have boys and I have black boys. And with that being said, my fear is the thing that still exists with police brutality. I have a 20-year-old son who he's probably stands about 6 feet tall. He doesn't wear a low cut hair. He has dreads. So all things that kind of market him to be pulled over by the police. So my fear is what happens if he's a victim. So my thing is I want our America, our communities, our country to clean up what we're doing and how we're behaving towards each other and humanize our situations and not only make our situations a cure towards a certain race or a certain gender, but I want everyone to be treated the same. I don't think that we would have the same level of fears if we witnessed this police brutality happening towards everyone. But because of the fact that we're able to see it happen towards only a specific race, that's what makes it tragic. So that's my greatest fear.
Okay, well, what do you think about the education system and how they teach about the different cultures, communities, races? What do you think about that?
Interesting that you should ask, because that's something I feel very passionate about as well. Well, I'm a strong believer that I think everyone should receive the same education, besides your social status, besides your race, besides your income. I receive that everyone should receive the same education so that way you have the same opportunities in life. Of course, different people will make different decisions. It will not all go the same path, but I at least feel if you receive the same foundation, then you receive a strong foundation to be able to make better choices, better decisions, and it also controls your environment and will assist with your decision making. So with that being said, I've seen, and I actually sit on a board of education with this, that different curriculums are being taught different ways across the county. Here in Mecklenburg County, for a prime example. But with private schools or some charter schools receive different curriculums that are stronger and that kind of set their participants and their students up to receive a better education, an education that will take them further in life to where they're able to get accepted into the better schools and and qualify for more scholarships. So, with that being said, I'm a strong advocate for the curriculum to remain the same in the counties, despite of what school you go to, whether it's a private school, a public school, a charter school, that you'll receive the same education that the next person would, regardless of economic status or race.
That's good. Miss Marty, I'm kind of in a hard place with that per se because I feel like everyone should have, the same education. Everybody should be able to be available to any apply supplies that may be needed for all the schools. But I do think that there's something wrong with our education system and the way we're teaching our children, especially in like history class and all of that stuff. We talked more about it in one of our previous episodes. But we were talking about how there's only one, like maybe a couple classes that you take on Black History Month, and you learn about the Holocaust and Jewish history for months at a time. Or they're teaching us false information, for example, Christopher Columbus, and they're drilling it into our brains for us to find out later in the future that they were all, not true, false information. So I feel like the school system should be revised in a way, but it should be available to everyone.
I agree with you. I think that's a very strong aspect. And I thank you for pointing that out because I think that that's something important that we must identify. And, just the strength to be able to verbose that of your feelings and your thoughts amongst that says a lot. I want you to continue to be public and continue to vocalize your feelings on that subject. So one day it will get into the correct ears to members of Congress, governmental employees, anyone who has the opportunity to make impacts and make decisions, who could qualify that to be something that we do, which is something that we began to implement. So that's great. I'm glad that you're so young and able to have such a strong opinion.
How do you see Charlotte developing and enhancing and becoming more diverse?
Okay, that is a great question. Since I've been in Charlotte for about 13 years, I have definitely witnessed and been an eyewitness to Charlotte developing, growing, and expanding. And Charlotte is developing at such a fast rate that I can definitely say that they have a lot of diversity. I won't say that there are certain neighborhoods that are considered, they would probably were considered Black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods in the past, but because of the rapid expansion and just the progression of people from all different creeds, genders, and races, that these populations and communities are now becoming mixed communities. So you're seeing people of all genders, all ages, all sexualities who are present in these communities. And that's one of the things that I admire about Charlotte. It's one of the few cities that I visited that can actually point that out, that there's definitely a diversity.
I absolutely agree with you.
All right, so what are your thoughts on gentrification, and what do you think we can do to solve this?
Well, gentrification is something that you will not want to stop. Gentrification is change, and gentrification is changing the upward mobility. So I think a lot of people have the false concept that they rip these people out of their homes and they put them out on the streets. Normally, if a home is located in a prime area, then these people receive very good money. Sometimes it's doubles the amount of their property value. Sometimes it's triple the amount of their property value. But they're offered the opportunity to have something better than what they had before. In some cases, they're also given the opportunity to come back into their home at a certain level, and they may even be able to purchase it at a lesser price. Once the updates and renovations are made. So gentrification is something that every city should want to see happen because it definitely improves the quality of your city. Who would want to live in a city where all the houses there are 100 plus years old? No one, right? You want to see that growth. You want to see that change. You want to see where people are being provided with housing opportunities that are going to be something better than what they had. So working with the housing authority, I think that was a false concept that I had as well, that these people are being kicked out of their homes and thrown out on the streets. But that's not true. That's not true at all. These people are provided with resources and opportunities to either relocate or either to have a monetary compensation for them to have something better than what they had before. So gentrification is something that is great for the city. It brings the value of the surrounding areas up. When gentrification takes place, not only does it take place for only the homes that's in the area, but gentrification also takes place for buildings and retail stores, it makes it more marketable. So gentrification is something that you definitely will want to see. I'll give a prime example. Not sure if any of you are really familiar with it, but there's Delahaye Courts. It's off 36th Street in the middle of uptown Charlotte. It's the second largest housing project in Charlotte. Because Charlotte is a large city that's growing at such a rapid rate, we no longer want our housing projects to look like housing projects. We want the people who stay in them to have dignity and not feel like ashamed of where they stay. So we're completely tearing it down, and we're relocating the people with all expenses paid. So many will pay for their movers, we'll pay to pack up their stuff, we'll pay their deposit, and we're relocating them to wherever they want to go. And we're rebuilding it to be a state-of-the-art apartment facility to where it no longer looks like a housing project. It'll look like the new apartment complexes that you see anyplace else. So when you see this building, you would not say that these are welfare recipients or someone who receives any type of subsidy. And it will encourage the people to have more pride and more dignity of where they stay. So I would say that just to say that gentrification is a good thing. It's totally a misconcept that these people are being displaced. And you could want to see gentrification.
Wow,
And,
thank you for
and
sharing.
let me ask you guys the question and get some dialect back on you. What do you think about gentrification? Did you think that it was something that these people are being displaced, and would you want to stay in a city where everything looks old and dated?
With me personally, I go to school at Northwest School of the Arts on Betty Swart Road, and so a lot of the teachers that work there live in the apartments or the houses across the street. They literally walk to work every single day. And so I would always hear them at school talking about how white people kept moving in and taking their houses and all this stuff like that, and they didn't have the money to go anywhere else. I would always hear constant complaints, and they wouldn't know what to do. I mean, we already know that teachers and school staff doesn't get paid enough already. So it was just, it was them basically trying to figure out what they were going to do because their rent or their mortgage kept rising and they could not pay for it, especially in the area that they were in.
And that's important. I'm glad that you point that out, but let me speak on that a little bit as well. So what has actually happened? Let's say in 1980, let's just say your science teacher, purchased a home on Betty Swart Road for $60,000. Okay. So now in 2021, that same value of that home, once going through gentrification, will probably cost you about $250,000. So do you see the drastic increase of that home increase? So what actually happens, and what people may feel like they're not getting enough money for it, is the retail value of it has shot up. So maybe the people who are trying to purchase the land or purchase the house have said, hey, you paid $60,000 for this home back in the early 80s, and we're going to offer you $100,000. If they want to probably sit on that property and say, nope, I'm not moving, and wait for them to increase and negotiate with them and say, you know what, if I want to come back in this area, it's going to at least cost me that. And if they're not trying to offer that or something similar to it, I wouldn't sell my property. They would have to build up around. So every other place and everyone who decided to give up their home for whatever they were paying and be sold out, then you will have to keep up with the times of it. So I just think it's a matter of personal choice. A lot of people think that the $100,000 that they're offering will be like a $40,000 increase. So they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's just big money. But you want to make sure that it's going to be able to be a place that you'll be able to use that $100,000 and get you someplace else to stay. Because when you look at the payments on a $60,000 house every month, you may pay $300-$400 for it. If you look at the payments on a house that's $250,000, you're paying about $1,500 for it. So that alone is a drastic increase. So what I advocate for people is to don't make those decisions alone. Make sure that you seek legal advice, and if they're trying to purchase you out of your home, then legal advice is available free of charge. So definitely don't make that decision alone, because I would want everyone to make an informed decision about it. But I still stand firm on gentrification is a great thing. Not only good, but it's great.
Have you ever experienced discrimination or racism with being a minority?
I am proud to say that luckily I personally have not experienced any racism or discrimination against me, not any that I've witnessed to my face. That's not to say that nothing has happened behind my back. However, I have definitely been a witness to other people being a victim of discrimination. It's definitely not fair to witness, and I can only imagine it's definitely no fun to have it actually done to you. It's something that we must work to change. It's something not only change, but it's something we must work to eliminate.
I definitely agree with you. I think as human beings, we need to come together and be supportive of each other, no matter your ethnicity or race or however you look like. If you see someone in need of help, you should definitely go help them and not just stand there and ignore them or just walk away just because you don't like their skin color or how they look like. Because you would want someone to help you if you were struggling. The point is, we need to uplift everyone no matter their race, ethnicity, or gender.
Amen.
You are 100% correct. And I admire the fact that you young ladies feel passionate about these topics that you're discussing, and that you're working to find solutions. And I think that just your effort of conversations that you're putting towards it will be a part of the small change that we need to see in the world. So I thank you, ladies, for even taking time out of your day to even have these discussions. Because to come up with these questions, that means this is something that you're thinking about. That many people are sitting back ignoring and pretending that's not happening. But you're taking time out of your day and you're bringing it to the forefront to say that this is what's happening and changes need to happen.
Yeah, and thank you for being so open to respond and answer our questions. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah. This is such a serious topic, so I just want to thank you guys for, taking it seriously and educating ourselves and being able to have not grown-up conversations, but more mature conversations with adults about this. And that's the only way we're going to find a solution to this whole problem.
Yes.
You're correct. You're so correct about it. And it is a very mature conversation because a lot of times people are offended. People become offended when you start to point out differences. Not only with race, with gender, with sexuality, just when differences alone are being pointed out, people oftentimes are offended. So I think, once we can all just become neutral to say, like, I'm open to at least listen, even if I don't agree, then I think that it improves our behaviors just to be able to discuss it. So I think, just being able to have the conversations, to openly being able to say your feelings, your thoughts, and, what emotions are triggered behind other people's actions is the first step in the solution.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Miss Marty, it has been a pleasure talking to you, a pleasure having you here with us tonight. Thank you so much for your time to come talk to us and sharing your wisdom and experiences with us as well. We are so glad to have had you. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. I would appreciate it if, you invite me back another time. I'm definitely willing to discuss more with you. So anytime that you want to hear anything that I have to say, my eyes and ears are always welcome and open for an invitation. So thank you guys for having me. You enjoy your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course,
You
thank
too.
you. Have a great rest of your evening. This concludes our episode. I hope you got our message. That is, as beings, we need to be there for each other and love each other no matter how you look like, what race, ethnicity you are, and what your background is. We need to come together as a whole and stand up for what is right, and that is equality. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time with Get Real with Gen Z.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Woo. Bye. Oh, did y'all not want to say bye with me? Say bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Woo. Bye.